After the earthquake of March 4, 1977, Nicolae Ceaușescu started a reconstruction plan of Bucharest, and the People's House was the center of this project. Named Project Bucharest, it was an ambitious project of Nicolae Ceaușescu's spouses began in 1978, as a replica of Pyongyang, the North Korean capital. A systematization project existed since the 1930s, during Carol II, for the unrest area. For its construction was organized a contest, won by Anca Petrescu, appointed chief architect of the project. At that time, Petrescu was just 28. In total, the team that coordinated the work was made up of 10 architects that subordinated another 700. The actual construction began on June 25, 1984. The inauguration of the work was also attended by Ceausescu. The building was erected on the site of some monasteries that were demolished and on the site of Uranus Hill that was leveled. In this area were located the National Archives, Bucharest Monastery, Brancovinesc Hospital, as well as about 37 old factories and workshops. Demolition in Uranus area began in 1982. 7 square kilometers of the old city center was demolished, and 40,000 people were relocated from this area. The works were carried out with forced labor of soldiers, and so the cost was minimized. Between 20,000 and 100,000 people worked on the site, sometimes operating in 3 shifts. Thousands of people died at the People's House, some mention a figure of 3,000 people. In 1989 building costs were estimated at $1.75 billion, and in 2006 at €3 billion. The Palace of the Parliament is the seat of the Parliament of Romania. Located on Dlrcinului in central Bucharest, Sector 5, it is the second largest administrative building in the world, after the Pentagon in the United States. With a height of 84 meters, an area of 365,000 square meters and having a volume of 2,550,000 cubic meters, it is also the 4th biggest building in the world, after the Vehicle Assembly Building at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, the Temple of the Feathered Serpent in Teotihuacan, Mexico, and the Pentagon. In terms of weight, the Palace of the Parliament is the heaviest building in the world, weighing in at around 4,098,500,000 kilograms. A colossal parliament building known for its ornate interior composed of 23 sections, it houses the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies, 3 museums and an international conference center. The National Museum of Contemporary Art, a museum of communist totalitarianism, established in 2015, and the Museum of the Palace are hosted inside the palace. Though named the House of the Republic, after the Romanian Revolution in 1989 it became widely known as the People's House. Due to its impressive endowments, conferences, symposiums and other events are organized by state institutions and international bodies, but even so about 70% of the building is empty. In 1990, Australian business magnate Rupert Murdoch wanted to buy the building for $1 billion, but his bid was rejected. As of 2008, the Palace of the Parliament is valued at €3 billion, $3.4 billion, making it the most expensive administrative building in the world. The cost of heating and electric lighting alone exceeds $6 million per year, as much as a medium-sized city. The Palace of Parliament is the largest and heaviest administrative building on the planet used for civilian purposes, and also the second largest administrative building overall, after the Pentagon. Currently, this imposing building houses the Romanian Senate and the Romanian Chamber of Deputies, and it is also the headquarters of the Southeast European Cooperation Initiative. Also known as the People's House, it was Nicolae Ceaușescu's attempt to redesign Bucharest by constructing a series of impressive buildings meant to prove to the world how wealthy and powerful was the Socialist Republic of Romania. The constructions began in 1983 when Romania was under the communist reign, and by the time of the Romanian Revolution in 1989 the building wasn't yet finished. Today, the building has only 400 chambers and 2 large halls that can be used, out of its total of 1,100 rooms. After the revolution, no one had the desire to complete this gigantic building. In fact, many Romanians demanded the destruction of the building, which was seen as a symbol of Ceausescu's megalomania and of the extravagant lives led by the former communist elites. Without a doubt, the Palace of the Parliament is one of the most controversial administrative buildings in the world. Maybe Ceausescu didn't succeed in his initial goal of redesigning the face of Bucharest, but by building it he made sure that his work will never be forgotten. Here are just a few interesting facts about the Palace of the Parliament. The Palace of the Parliament is visible from the moon. Yes, that's right. The Great Wall of China and the Pentagon aren't the only constructions in the world made by man that can be seen from the moon. The Palace of the Parliament is also one of these unique and impressive constructions. It is bigger than Cheops Pyramid. Cheops Pyramid from Egypt has a 550.000 cubic meters capacity, which is pretty huge for a building, but, believe it or not, the Romanian Palace of the Parliament is bigger with 2%. 400 contributing architects led by a 28-year-old woman. Building and decorating in figures. For building the Palace of the Parliament, they needed 1,000 cubic meter of marble, 900.000 cubic meters wood essences, 3.500 tons of crystal, while for decorating the interior they used 220.000 square meters of carpets and 3.500 square meters of calf skin. Plus, all the materials used were of Romanian origin. The only exceptions are the doors of Nicolae Ceaușescu Hall. These were received by Ceausescu as a gift from his friend, the African dictator Mobutu Sese Seko, who was back then the president of the Republic of Zaire. It was all about the size. Ceausescu really wanted to have the hugest palace of the parliament in the world. The building has 20 floors, 8 of them are underground, 100 rooms and a total size of 330.000 square meters. The Guinness Book of Records ranks it second after the Pentagon in the administrative buildings category. Initially it was named House of the Republic. At first, the building was called House of the Republic, but its name was changed after the Romanian Revolution into People's House, Casa Poporului Lui. When it became the headquarters of the Senate and Chamber of Deputies, it was again renamed as the Palace of Parliament. In the famous TV show Top Gear, we see the 3 presenters driving their cars through the tunnels that are hidden beneath the Palace of the Parliament. These were designed by Nicolae Ceaușescu so he can get from the building to the airport below ground in case of a revolution. He was very cautious, but unfortunately this did not help him much when the actual Romanian Revolution started. Even though it used to be a communist country at that time, Romania was set on performance more than on gender discrimination. The construction process involved 400 architects and they were coordinated by a young woman named Anca Petrescu. She was only 28 years old. On December 25, 1989, the carefully constructed edifice of communism in Eastern Europe, already crumbling in a wave of popular upheavals, was dealt a fatal blow with the execution of Romanian dictator Nicolae Ceaușescu. The downfall of Ceausescu, the Romanian dictator who ran his country for the benefit of himself and his family like a feudal master, sent shockwaves around the world. Today, the country is still trying to cope with a legacy that defiled the face of Bucharest, bankrupted the state and traumatized generations of Romanians. For some, one way of overcoming their psychological damage is to tell their story to tourists. It's now possible to join a tour in Bucharest that awakens the memories from a despised era to recount the story of the last days of Romanian communism. Hitler's eagle's nest and other tyrants' lairs. Monument to Megalomania. The tour starts at the grandiose Parliamentary Palace, a permanent reminder of the communist leader's megalomania. Irene, 30, a chic parliamentary aide, gives us the figures and numbers. The building, she says, is the world's third largest by volume after the Aztec pyramid of Teotihuacan and the Cape Canaveral rocket assembly hangar. It uses 220,000 square meters of carpet, 3,500 tons of crystal and 1 million cubic meters of marble. The carpet in the main Union Hall alone weighs 1.5 tons. How did this monster come to be? Irene tells us how Ceausescu took advantage of a 1977 earthquake to raise most of the lower city center of Bucharest, flattening a hill and changing the course of the Damavita River. 40,000 people were forcibly displaced. Everything within an area of 4 square miles was rebuilt from scratch to match the style of the People's Palace. A stadium, several hospitals and 24 churches or synagogues were demolished, says Irene. Only 3 historic Orthodox churches were saved by moving them, foundations and all, behind large apartment blocks so that they would remain invisible and not spoil his view. Bucharest, 9 reasons to see Romania's capital. Perfect echo. Construction involved 700 architects and 20,000 building workers doing 3 shifts a day, plus 5,000 army personnel, 1.5 million factory workers and an army of so-called volunteers. The palace's Union Hall features 2 large spiral staircases that descend to the main entrance to allow Ceausescu and his wife Elena to make grand, synchronized entrances. He was short and touchy about his height, says Irene, so he had the staircases rebuilt twice in order to match his step. Irene claps her hands. The sound travels crisply. Every chamber has a perfect echo, because when Ceausescu wanted something, he clapped. And he wanted everyone to know he clapped. Ceausescu never got to see the building finished. By the time of the revolution, in December 1989, the building was only 2/3 complete. The incoming administration didn't know what to do with it, but the Romanian economy was so entangled with the palace that it had to be finished. The building was completed in 1994 and, since 1996, it has housed the Romanian Senate and Chamber of Deputies. The ground floor is home to a modern art museum. Nevertheless, the building, which costs a dizzying $6 million a year to run, is still 70% empty. After 1 hour of walking up and down its corridors, I had still only seen less than 10% of it. Albania Bloc Party, dancing away the dictator's legacy. Night of Terror. After this grand-scale folly, the simple, modernist design of the old Communist Party headquarters, now the Interior Ministry, looks mundane, banal even. It stands in front of what is now dubbed Revolution Square, where the protesting crowds gathered in December 1989, intent on bringing down the regime. My friend Gabriel has brought me here to remember that night. I was just 17, says Gabriel, trying to sound neutral, but in his voice the underlying emotion is easily discernible. I felt a change in the air. So on December 21, 1989, I came here with my friends. We stood here for hours, sometimes silent, sometimes shouting slogans against the regime. Then someone started shooting at the crowd. He looks up to the balcony. The guy standing next to me just fell without a sound. He was shot in the head. I thought, my God, that could be me. But I stayed. Everyone encouraged each other and we did not go home. Gabriel looks at me and guesses my thoughts. I do not consider myself a hero, he says. I was just a curious boy. Revolution Square is now adorned with a pyramid of victory. It depicts a tall needle pricking the cloud of communism. On the south side there is a memory wall with 1,058 names of innocent Romanians who were killed during the rebellion. Gabriel still doesn't the name of the guy shot next to him. But I know he's one of them, he says. Next day, Ceausescu left the besieged Communist Party HQ by helicopter. After the army turned against him, he was arrested in Târgoviște and, after a short court-martial, executed along with his wife, Elena, on Christmas Day 1989. Images of their dead bodies ghoulishly beamed around the world. Watching the Watchers, a spy's tour of Berlin. An empty grave. They were buried in a hurry at Gheorghe Cemetery in southwestern Bucharest, their graves unmarked, although everybody knew where they were. Gabriel shows me the original plots, now empty. No one wants to reuse them. In 2010, Valentin, their only surviving child, received permission to have his parents' remains exhumed and reburied together under a modest tombstone. So what happened to the Ceausescu's villa? I ask Gabriel. I'll take you there, he says and drives me to North Bucharest, where green parks, tree-lined avenues and high walls illustrate the affluence of the residents. Gabriel stops on the one side of a dual carriageway and points at a building on the far side. That's it, he says with an ironic smile. I read the sign, Embassy of Kuwait. I cross the road and try to take a picture. There are 2 armed guards outside the embassy. No photos, shouts one. I show him my press card. While he looks at it, I try to steal a few quick snaps. No, 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 shouts the second guard running towards me. I smile, shrug and scamper across the carriageway to Gabriel, who has been watching the scene with alarm. You don't argue with police, he says, as he speeds off, shaking his index finger at me. Ceausescu and communism may have gone, but their impact in people's minds will take some time to heal. On the trail of the Blood Countess in Slovakia,